The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is John Maselli from Annexus, and I have Peter Kaplan on the line as well. We're going to get started here in about another minute or so. So please just give us a little bit. We want to make sure everybody has time to get dialed in. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Again, this is John Maselli from Annexus, and I have Peter on the line with me as well. I'm going to turn things over to Peter so he can make the proper introductions and give a few words before we get started. So thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for taking some time out of your busy days to join us for, I know, will be a very interesting 30 to 35 minutes. At First American, we think about partnerships all the time, and they're critical to us. The partnership that you as our advisors have with us, and the partnerships that we have with our carrier partners and our partners who provide us product. And it all comes together when we at First American get selected to be part of an elite group that is allowed and permissible to distribute a product that isn't available to the general market. And very excited to have John Maselli, who leads the life sales component of Annexus, join us today to share with you the New Heights IUL accumulator. As I said, it's not available in the general market. There are a select number of brokerage general agencies who are allowed to distribute that. It is one of the best, for those of you who sell the fixed annuity side, you know of Annexus, you know of their track record, and we're now able to bring that to the IUL side. So without taking too much away from John, thank you as well, James and the team at Annexus, for partnering with us and Nationwide to get this available to our partners, our advisors. So over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, everybody, for joining, and the team from First American who has invited you to join this call today. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to take about 30 minutes, and I'm going to introduce the New Heights IUL accumulator to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information on who Annexus is as well, as we begin our conversation. Our ultimate goal is that each of you that are on this call today will have a case that you'll look at and say New Heights might be a good fit. You'll want an illustration from your partner at First American, and maybe you want to have an additional conversation, which your partners there will be able to reach back out to me, and we can go more in depth if you need, answer more questions, and have more of a one-on-one dialogue that'll help you get your bearings with New Heights IUL. So that's the goal of the call today. Get a starting point, get everybody interested and off and running. So let me tell you a little bit about Annexus. Like Peter said, many of you may already know who we are through your experience in the fixed indexed annuity space. We are basically specialists in the creation and design in retirement income solutions. And that falls in the index universal life space as well as the fixed indexed annuity space. So what we bring to the table is not just distribution, where we actually will select with our carrier partnership, in this case Nationwide, who exactly has access to our product strategies. And that's really important. So that limits distribution, which means that it gives you exclusivity to a product that your competitors may not have, which I think is a very important takeaway. So it puts you in a really interesting position to say, I have something here that my clients now have access to that they can't go down the street and get it from the next person that is in production. We also bring a lot of strategic partnerships to the table, whether it's from the design side, the actuarial side, the indexing side, whatever it might be. We have a lot of strategic partnerships out there that we really bring to bear onto product design and product development. and then also product innovation. What we do and how we do it is unique to the industry, and that's why carriers really come to us to say, bring your expertise and help us be better in this particular space, whether it's index universal life or fixed index annuities. And I think that's really important. And where does the benefit ultimately lie? Well, you as the producer, but I think more importantly, your clients, because they're able to take advantage of these strategies where they may not be able to have access to these strategies otherwise. Our key partnerships are vast, varying levels of partnerships, but today we're really going to focus on the Nationwide partnership, which is really one of our biggest and probably our most important partnerships that we have at Annexus. How does this benefit you? Well, it's a mutual company. When you look at a mutual, first thing that jumps off the page is policyholder treatment. Not being a publicly traded company is really, really important. So that means that the policyholder ultimately wins out. You got brand recognition. My wife and I can't sit down and watch TV, whether it's golf, a ball game, or just an evening TV show, and not see Brad Paisley and Peyton Manning on the screen. So you automatically get that. And I think that's really important there. So those are the types of things that your clients will look at and say, yeah, I know Nationwide. Also financial strength, and you can see here what the financial strength of Nationwide is as a carrier partner. So you bring in the best in the sense of product development with Annexus, and the best in the sense of who the carrier is that's underwriting and the paper that the contract is actually on. So let's talk about New Heights. Oh, and just as a side note here, if you do have any questions, there is a question space in here. Everybody's on mute, but just type your question in there, and I'll do my best to circle back and answer any questions you may have. So if you would. So New Heights IUL. What's important here? What are the key features of this contract that benefit you and your clients over the long term? This is one of the lowest cost IUL designs in the market. And when we look at what is the benefit of having a low cost design, it simply means more accumulated values going to the, more accumulation going to the account values. And that's important. So less going to the cost. And in this case, it's the cost of the indexes themselves, as well as other costs that are associated with the underlying indexes, and more being credited to the account. So you have higher accumulated values, you have higher income streams in your income salts. That's really important. So low cost design, this is one of the lowest costs in the industry. The proprietary indices themselves, we will discuss these today. You're not going to see these anywhere else. They're not out there in other index universal life contracts. They are exclusive to New Heights IUL and the Nationwide New Heights fixed indexed annuity. So that's very, very unique in the messaging of what you're able to bring to your clients. Then we have our uncapped strategies with really high participation rates. And you can see there 115% to 180%. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. But that's another unique takeaway there. And then even though we have these uncapped strategies and these high pars, Nationwide asked us to put in some guarantees. So we built what we call participation rate guarantees of 100% on our 1-year segments and 125% on the 2-year segments. So that's really important too. So low cost, unique proprietary indexes, strong uncapped strategy segments with high par rates, and then participation rate guarantees. So 3 key takeaways right out of the gate to keep in mind when you're looking at New Heights IUL. We also added the long-term care rider to the contract. So if you're having that conversation with a client, long-term care comes up, you can actually have the rider added to the policy. And I probably worked on 3 or 4 cases this week with different partnerships that I manage just in talking about LTC and adding it to New Heights. So it's a really good feature to have to the contract. So philosophically, why does Annexus do what it does, and how do we do it? We have to really start talking about IUL solutions in the S&P 500. That is really the foundation of all IULs that you see out there. And we have to take a look at kind of where we've been, but also where we feel we are headed. And I think that's important. So you can see that we've had this great run up. We've had this really strong bull market especially over the last 10 years. The gains have been really beneficial across the board. But we have to ask ourselves, and this is something we ask ourselves at Annexus, will we repeat? Will we do what we have done over the last 10 years? And the way we look at it with our partnerships, whether they're Wall Street analysts, world famous economists that we work with, the major banks, the big institutions, really estimates coming out right now for forecasting is Wall Street's going to be domestically equities about 6.62% over the next 10 years. And when you take out the 2% for dividends, that brings it down to around 4.62%. So we're actually looking at where we are to, where we have been and where we're at today and where we're heading is that domestically equities just aren't going to do what they've done over the last 10 years. And that's very, very important when we are doing our planning with our clients, especially for retirement. So we took a different approach to these things. And then we have to look at this, because this is big right now. AG 49A is coming out in the next, well, it just got moved to December 13th. So the implementation is going to be over the next 2 months. You're going to see this across the board with different products. So fees, spreads, they're going to be changing. Spreads are going up. These hurdle rates are going up. All right. The overall cost, the caps are coming down. Somebody told me the other day that a carrier increased the spread to 9%, but the maximum guaranteed spread could go up to 30%. Now think about that for a minute. That's actually in the contract. That's in the contract. I saw one where somebody said that the cap is at 9.5, but contractually they can lower the cap to 2%. Think about that for a minute. What's the impact there? How does that affect what your long-term planning looks like with your clients? So we have to take all of this into consideration, not just when you're designing an IUL, but also when you're figuring out which IUL best suits your client's needs, and then kind of put it in the blender and mix it up and try to figure out what to do. Well, at Annexus, what we do is we take a look at all of this stuff for you. And we say, let's design something that's actually going to work better, be more efficient, create consistency. I'm big on simple. I've always said simple sells. And having something that is a conversation where the client's going to get it makes our lives a lot easier. So what we did, looking at the S&P, looking at the industry as a whole, looking at traditional S&P 500 indexes that we see in most products, we said, let's give you the 500. Let's give you the S&P, but let's do it better. So our strategic partnerships, New York Stock Exchange, Zebra Edge, this is a partnership with the New York Stock Exchange, Zebra Capital Management, and Annexus. And Zebra Capital Management's owned by and was founded by Roger Ibbotson, which many in the industry know who Ibbotson is from when he was at Morningstar and he did the Morningstar reports and such. He's actually a strategic partner of ours. We co-designed Zebra Edge with Zebra Capital Management. And the whole idea behind this is use the 500, use the S&P, but let's evaluate it. And let's use the behavioral finance model that Ibbotson created to say, how can we make it better? How can we work it so that it's to the client's benefit? So it's a filtering process is what behavioral finance is. So instead of being beholden to the full 500, what we do is we filter through the 500 and we eliminate equities. Up to 300 equities every 90 days are eliminated out of this index. And it focuses on the 200 that are actually going to drive positive performance over the next 90 days. So that's how this model works. It still gives you the S&P, it just gives it to you in a smarter way, in a better performing way. When I talk about consistency, this is where consistency comes in. This is that consistent conversation that we want to have, is just having that year-over-year performance that's going to drive results. This is where it begins right here. So this is the Zebra Edge. 500, weed out 3, focus on 2, weight accordingly across sectors, and drive performance. And this is what we want, is consistency. So this is that year-over-year consistency that we talk about. Low volatility, which is important. That means the lows aren't going to be so low, the highs are still going to be attainable, and we're just going to drive that consistent year-over-year performance. We look at Annexus, the consumer themselves, the policy owner themselves, will have an IUL as part of their financial plan, part of their portfolio, for an average of 20 to 30 years. So having consistent performance year over year over year is really important for them to meet that goal and objective of why did they do what they did in 2020 or 2021? To drive accumulated values, supplemental income, tax-free income, whatever it might be. But to get there, we need that consistency. And that's really what's important. So a low volatility index is going to drive consistent year-over-year performance that's also tracked and validated by the New York Stock Exchange. This is the only index in an IUL that is actually tracked and validated every day by the New York Stock Exchange. So again, strategic partnership, very unique from that standpoint. So this is what the Zebra Edge is from an IUL or from an index standpoint, a smarter S&P. All right. So let's talk about the options here. Let's talk about the segments. We have three uncapped option segments in each one of our indexes. We start out with a 2-year segment term. This is a 2-year point to point. The participation rate is 145%. All right. So on a 2-year basis, we see what the crediting rate would be, or basically what the index performance is, I should say. We multiply that by 145%, and then that gets applied to the contract. So you have all this uncapped potential of the index itself. So whatever the index performs, you grab it, and then we calculate it and actually make it higher. All right. So that's the 2-year segment. We have a 1-year segment at 115%. 1-year point to point, same thing. What did the index return? 5%, 6%, 7%, 4%, whatever it is, multiply it by 115%, that gets applied to the contract. That's the power of uncapped strategies with high participation rates. And then we have a buy-up option. So you want a little bit more in the policy. If you want to have a higher crediting rate on a 1-year point to point, we offer you an opportunity to do that. It's a 1% strategy fee, but it allows you to have a 145% participation rate on a 1-year point to point segment. So that's something that would be interesting to you, something that would work for your client, by all means. It's there, it's available to you. But this is the power behind this contract, is these uncapped segments with these high participation rates. This just basically means that we don't have to hit home runs year after year after year to drive performance. We don't have to worry about, is there a multiplier? Is there some type of bonus feature? This is raw index return with a high participation rate applied to it. So you can't beat that. You know, it's like with the S&P, you know, as a financial advisor, I don't think I'm going to sit down in front of a client and recommend they buy Amazon today at $3,500 a share. At $100 a share, maybe. $500, possibly. That's really what we're talking about here with Zebra. We're not looking to put clients into something that's overpriced, all right, out of their reach. That's the power behind Zebra Edge and these segments. And the way the index itself is built, low volatility, it allows us to maintain these high participation rates for longer periods of time. And remember, those 1-year segments have that 100% participation rate guarantee, and that 2-year segment has a 125% participation rate guarantee. So let's look at some performance numbers here. Just going backwards, looking historically, you know, over a 20-year period, and just kind of compare it, the 10 best, 10 worst, and the averages. And you can really focus on that middle. That's the average of what was actually credited using Zebra Edge. And that's pretty doggone powerful. And you can look at that far right column that shows what the illustrated rate is, and that's the maximum illustrated rate allowable that we can run this at. We actually outperformed our illustrated rate when we look at the averages. All right. And I think that's a key takeaway right there, because that really states, all right, this index holds up. This strategy works. All right. And this shows it. Let's say we had to go to the guarantees, meaning the guaranteed par rates, 100%, 125%. And you can see how well we did there as well. All right. So we're taking all these data points, about 20 years of information, just throwing it in and calculating it out, saying, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we did. It's still pretty doggone good. All right. So that's what we're looking at with Zebra Edge. So we're giving you the S&P. We're just doing it in a smarter way, more efficient, uncapped segments, high participation rates. So let's say you have a client. Well, let's say you yourself. You're one of these people that says, I like diversification. I like to have a little bit of something international in there too. I think that's important. Well, when I say we have strategic partnerships out there, we have strategic partnerships out there because even internationally, our analysts, our economists, our partners are saying international is probably going to outperform domestic over the next 10 years. This gives you an idea of what the last 10 years have been and what Wall Street forecasts are for the next 10 years. You can see that difference there. And I think that's really important. So we actually give you that ability to have a little global flavor here with the JP Morgan Mosaic too. All right. And this is just bringing in a little bit of global, all right, to mix with that Zebra Edge if you want to. You don't have to, but it's here for you. What's a little bit different here versus Zebra is we're looking at asset classes. Where Zebra Edge was focused on the 500, this is actually focused on equities, fixed income, and commodity classes. So there's 15. And what we do is we filter through the 15 and we actually focus in on 9. This rebalances and recalculates every 30 days. So the goal is to find the 9 asset classes with, again, that greatest opportunity to drive positive returns over the next 30 days. All right? Again, low volatility index. Another low volatility solution here that really gives you that ability to say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we can add global. We can give you some Germany, some Japan, some Great Britain, as well as domestically here in the US. All right. You can see the breakdown with the equities, the commodities, as well as the fixed income classes. All right. And this just filters every 30 days and just weights accordingly. So it's a pretty simple way of doing things. It's always looking for that positive returns. What's happening going forward? How are we looking on a going forward basis? And that's really what the key is here. And that's what drives these returns. Here's that consistency. Look at this. If there's one slide to sum up, why would we do New Heights IUL? Why would we consider this? Here it is. Look at that green line consistency. The tech bubble, 9/11, the financial crisis. All the way up. All right. That's the goal here. That's our objective when we design an IUL is consistency, year-over-year performance, sustainability. That's our goal, and that shows that right here. 3 uncapped strategies again. 2-year segment, 180% participation rate. 1-year segment, 125% participation rate. And then again, if you want that higher 1-year point-to-point for a 1% strategy fee, you can have a participation rate of 165%. So again, 3 uncapped options here, 3 uncapped segments to work with. You can build into the design, take advantage of all that upside, multiply it with that par rate, and you have that return that's being credited to the account. So we give you domestic with Zebra, we give you that S&P, smarter version, we give you Mosaic, give you some of that global flavor if so desired, and you can just have the flexibility and freedom to work with you. If you want to go all in with Zebra, by all means do it, but you have that flexibility. Here's the performance again, taking a look at a 20-year snapshot, really just shows you how well we did on the average, 10 best, 10 worst, you can see right there. And then if we had to go to the guaranteed participation rates, again, you can see where the performance lies if we had to come down to that 100% participation rate and that 125% participation rate on the 2-year. So 2 indices, you have Zebra Edge for the S&P, you have JP Morgan Mosaic for global. You got balance here. But I think the key is you have low volatility indices that are going to drive performance on a consistent year-over-year basis with sustainable, uncapped strategies with high participation rates that are really going to allow your clients to get to where they need to be. All right. They're going to allow them to reach that goal. This is more of and I was just having this conversation before I was on this call with one of my key contacts, this is more of a conservative nature IUL because of the low volatility design and the consistency and the low cost factors. This is more conservative. because we're going to see more 6%, 6.5%, 7% credited year over year. And we don't have to worry about this. And here's just this interesting study we did. And again, we take a different view on everything. And you're probably thinking, oh, great, they're going to show us how well this performs for an income solve for a 40-year-old. Not the first time we've seen this year or month or week. But we did a little bit something different here. We wanted to show you how much it actually costs to own an IUL. And as again, to go back with the AG 49A changes that are coming up, a lot of those are to address this center column right here. And these costs that are associated with these asset-based fees and charges, these are drags on policies. These are drags on accumulated values. These are costs that no matter what the index does, what the policy does in the way of performance, these charges have to be taken out of the contract. And that is something to realize. Not saying that these are not good policies. I was talking about one in comparison today. For a certain age demographic, at a certain income level and net worth, it's a good solution. But for somebody who maybe doesn't have, that time is different, or they just are a little bit more conservative in nature, maybe you're more conservative as a professional out there, we have to take that into consideration. And this gives you that view of what it would cost to actually own New Heights over the long term. And this is a 30-year snapshot. All right, this is a 30-year snapshot on cost here. So this gives you that idea of, okay, what is it that we're actually paying for? And how does that cost factor affect overall performance and our ability to reach our long-term goals? So just to recap, low-cost IUL design, one of the lowest in the industry. And I think that's really, really important. Proprietary indices, unique to New Heights IUL. You won't see these anywhere else. Strong uncapped segments, high participation rate, sustainable. We're able to sustain these for longer durations because low volatility indexes, consistency, year-over-year performance, which I think is really, really our goal here, is to really just drive that annual performance year over year. And then with the guarantees built in on the PARs, which I think is really important. So it gives us a little bit more of, in the IUL space, where people say zero's the floor when it comes to index performance, but you also have to look at participation rates. And what is the minimum? What's the lowest the participation rates can come to? And here you have it. And those are contractually guaranteed. They're part of the language in the policy. All right. And I think that's really, really important. So low cost, proprietary indices, strong guarantees. You have a policy that's going to perform consistently year over year for you. So it's going to deliver. Basically, there's no apologies here. I'll stand on a soapbox on the corner at Faneuil Hall in downtown Boston, and I'll basically tell everybody this is one of the strongest IULs you're going to see in the market. And I don't think I'm going to worry about anybody pushing back on me. All right? Because I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people out there. Not too many people push back. All right? So with that is our presentation today. Peter, would you like to say anything in closing?
John, as always, a pleasure to listen to this, and the strength of the product does absolutely speak for itself. For our advisors on the call today, our case design specialists have already been illustrating this product, comparing it to other products. We did a lot of due diligence prior to the launch of this, and we're excited that we can offer you this. If any of you have questions that you'd like to deal with one-on-one, your brokerage manager partner, myself, any of the case design specialists, all available and educated and ready to take questions around the product. And if we need to dive deeper, John and his team are available to us as well. So please feel free to reach out. And again, John, just thank you so much for your time and expertise in sharing this fantastic product.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And everybody at First American, if you are working on any cases right now, especially in the overfunded space, the income solves, reach out to the team there and get some illustrations for comparisons. And to build on what Peter said, if you need to get deeper in the weeds, you want to know more about this, let your partner at First American know. They'll circle back to me. I keep everything at a very high level in these larger group calls just for simplicity. but I can pretty much peel that onion back to I don't know. I can go deep. So I'm very well versed, very well trained on that side of this product as well. So if you're working on something, get some illustrations. Let's have a conversation with your First American partner. And other than that, folks, thank you for your time. We did record the session today, so that'll be on the First American website. So if you need to listen to it, you can. And other than that, Peter, thank you. You and your team are great. The partnership's wonderful. And have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.